When I think of the name Tony Stewart, he's best described to me as a badass.
I'm an American badass!
The talent that Tony Stewart has behind the wheel of a race car is freaking unreal. Whatever he drives, he ends up being victorious. Doesn't matter if it's a sprint car, late model Indy car, NASCAR, or top fuel dragster. He ends up finding a way to be really good in every vehicle he straps into and hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. There's people that say Kyle Larson is the best race car driver in the world, and I would love to agree with these people. I'm a big Larson fan after all, but I don't think he tops Tony Stewart just yet. I'll be sitting here all day listening off everything Tony has accomplished in racing. You see all of these big races and championships he's won across Motorsports, but it's a prestigious race that he's never added to his impressive Motorsports resume, and that's the Daytona 500. Now, Tony Stewart is not alone when it comes to great drivers being snake bit trying to win the Daytona 500. Mark Martin and Rusty Wallace instantly comes to mind. The great Dale Earnhardt Sr. went 20 years trying to win that race and eventually got it done, but before that, shit will always hit the fan, and the same thing happened to Tony Stewart. From 1999 to 2005, I can say that he had about 4 races during this time span where he had the car capable of winning the Daytona 500, but it never came together. Engine failures, getting caught up in wrecks, and well, shit, just getting beat straight up. No cigar for smoke. Tony must have woke up the morning of the 2006 Daytona 500 and thought about all of his shortcomings when it came to that race, because let's just say that he was on one in the 2006 Daytona 500. And around this time period, Tony Stewart's temper was out of control. If someone pissed him off, he would literally do what the AI did to you on the old EA NASCAR games and body slam the shit out of you. And I wouldn't consider Tony Stewart to be a dirty racer. He's aggressive at times, but not dirty. But for a guy that preaches about racing with respect, he hasn't been no angel on the track himself. He's made some boneheaded moves as well over the years. In the 2006 Daytona 500, he made a lot of those type of moves. And before I even go into all of that, I know it's going to be people that look at the title of this video and hear me talk about Tony being a menace on track and will proceed to bring up the Kevin Ward incident in the comments. And no, we're not doing that. This video has nothing to do with that. So, the 2006 Daytona 500 is foggy and misting, and this is pretty much the setting that you see throughout the entire race. Tony Stewart starting 15th. His car was fast but handled poorly, especially in traffic. He didn't stay 15th for long. He got up to the front around lap 25. And right when he gets there, oh man, that's when things start happening. As he was going for the pass on Matt Kenseth, he got really loose underneath him and damn near spun out. And by the way, look at that. Matt Kenseth and Tony Stewart side by side. Interesting. Anyway, even after that happened to him, he took the lead a few laps later. So Tony Stewart's out front in the Daytona 500. He's doing his thing. And if you're sitting here watching this race live, you're probably thinking to yourself, how does he lose the 500 this time? Well, let me go ahead and give you the answer to that question. By driving like a complete jackass. So, on lap 49, Jamie McMurray passes Tony Stewart for the lead, and as he's falling back, he drifts up the racetrack and Jeff Gordon tries to split the middle, but they made contact and both of them went into the wall. When you go back and look at what happened, it's pretty clear that Tony came down. Yes, Gordon barely drifted up the track, but you can clearly see from this angle that Tony is coming down and catches the quarter panel of the 24. I don't understand what Tony was trying to do right here. You can see how much racetrack he has up top, so it's not like he barely had room. I'm with Wally Donnerback when it comes to this incident. If Tony just would have checked up and gave Gordon some room, that incident would have never happened. Jeff Gordon tried to put the blame on both of them, but nah, Jeff, this was pretty much all on Tony. Meanwhile, Tony placed all the blame on Gordon for that, which makes this incident really frustrating looking back on because we all know who really caused it. So now Tony Stewart and Jeff Gordon are at the back of the pack, and after that incident, you assume the 20 and 24 chances of winning the Daytona 500 were done. Jeff Gordon's car actually wasn't the same after that incident, as he would go on to finish 26. But meanwhile, Tony Stewart stormed right back to the front before the halfway point, and goddamn, he was a man on a mission. He's so lucky to have a car that's still capable of running at the front. So just try to pick your spots better and don't make any more enemies would be the logical choice, but nah, causing chaos was on Tony's agenda. Like, look at this, he's making contact with Jimmy Johnson for no reason, and you're just wondering, what the fuck is going on with Tony today? And you're going to ask that same question again in a few minutes. So now we get to the big moment that pretty much solidified that Tony Stewart was a straight up menace in this race. Coming back from a commercial break on lap 108, Matt Kenseth is backwards in turn 3. The car isn't really damaged, and if you had to guess what happened, he probably blew a tire. NBC proceeds to show a replay, and Tony Stewart turns right down on Matt Kenseth at 190 miles per hour and sent him into the grass. Now, before I proceed to give my opinion on this incident, I want to flash back to a week prior to this race. After the Budweiser shootout, listen to what Tony Stewart said.
Yeah, we're going to kill somebody, so, I mean, somebody else is going to die at Daytona or Talladega with what we're doing right here, so, I hope I'm not around when it happens. Somebody else is going to die at Daytona or Talladega with what we're doing right here, so, somebody else is going to die at Daytona or Talladega with what we're doing right here, so, somebody else is going to die at Daytona or Talladega with what we're doing right here, so,
So after all the shit he was talking about aggressive driving from the previous week, here he is driving like a complete maniac in the Daytona 500. All he's doing is coming off as a hypocrite. This was pretty egregious. So remember when Tony was side by side with Matt Kenseth earlier in the race and got loose underneath him? This was Tony's payback, and Tony admitted that after the race. Matt didn't deserve to get knocked off the track at full speed, especially over something that was kinda minor. I would never understand why Matt Kenseth didn't go after Tony Stewart once the race concluded. And no, I ain't talking about having a conversation. I'm talking about just straight up whooping his ass for that. If I was in Kenseth's shoes, I would have been on him like flies on shit. There's no way that you about to door slam me off the track and cost me a chance to win the sport's biggest race and walk out the track without dealing with me. And if I can't catch your ass at the track, you better hope I don't see you at the airport. I'll be on some Jeff Gordon shit from 2005 where he gave Mike Bliss a black eye at the airport after they had an incident at Chicagoland earlier that day. This should have been the race where Kenseth stood up for himself. Forget waiting until 2014 when he pulled his WWE backstage attack on Brad Keselowski. The 2006 Daytona 500 should have been that race. I just love how blunt Wally Donovac was when it came to this incident. Just listen to what he says.
You know, for a guy that was talking about over-aggressive driving, which was Tony Stewart earlier this week, I don't understand what his situation was there. You don't drive all the way across the racetrack like that unless you're after somebody. So NASCAR made a call, aggressive driving. It's just, it seems a little bit ironic that this is the driver that started all that after the Bud shootout about guys being too aggressive and causing problems.
And I fully agree with Wally, he ain't telling no lies. What makes this incident even more frustrating is that after Tony and Matt came off pit road, NASCAR decided to penalize Matt Kenseth because he was showing his displeasure towards Tony Stewart, rightfully so. Matt would have to come down pit road under green and lose a lap while Tony Stewart gets a slap on the wrist. He gets sent to the tail end of the line for aggressive driving, and to be honest, that penalty wasn't strong enough. Tony should have been held a lap on pit road, something that would have been more harsh than dropping to the rear. He just drove all the way back up to the front after the Gordon incident, so there's a good chance of him doing that again. So after Tony's rampage was over, he went on to finish 7th. Meanwhile, the two guys he got into it with both finished behind him. So that just adds on to the frustration. The guy that caused all the chaos went on to get a top 10 while Gordon and Kenseth came home with mediocre finishes. Tony Stewart came off unapologetic in his interview, which is not surprising, and just makes you lose your mind because he didn't realize how much of a weapon he was out there on the track during this race. I enjoyed the 2006 Daytona 500. It was a good race, but Tony Stewart made it frustrating at times because as you're sitting here watching this race, you're saying to yourself, what the fuck is this dude's problem? Tony Stewart was tweaking in this race. I can definitely say this is one of the worst races he's drove during his NASCAR career. And look, this video wasn't meant to make people hate Tony Stewart. All I'm doing is pointing out how much of a menace he was in this particular race. Tony Stewart's always been up there when it comes to my favorite NASCAR drivers. But I gotta call it how I see it. So what's y'all thoughts on this? Was any of this shit that Tony Stewart pulled in this race justified? Is there any other race you could think of where a driver drove like a complete maniac all race? Let me know in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and roll up out of here. Y'all have a good one. Peace.